Hey guys, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of my favorite lures, the Swim Jig. I started using these a lot about a year or so ago, and have found them to be an extremely effective and extremely versatile lure. So I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about how I fish this. This won't be a super long video, but so the thing with the Swim Jig, if you are like me and you're coming from, say, you use a lot of chatterbaits, you use a lot of spinnerbaits, things like that, things with a little bit more feel in the water. The Swim Jig, when you first start using it, it can feel very odd. The reason being is you don't feel a whole lot of movement on it as you're retrieving it. So it coming from, like, say, a chatterbait or a spinnerbait where you feel something, this can feel the confidence can take a while to establish, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So when you cast this thing out there and you're retrieving it, it's going to feel like you'll feel some resistance in the water, but you're just not going to feel a lot of feedback. So the big thing, guys, I'd say two big things with gaining confidence using swim jigs. Keep in mind, whatever trailer you have on there, the trailer is what's giving you the majority of your action. Now, I've got a Rapala cleanup craw on this 6 Sense Divine swim jig right now, so I've got a craw type trailer. A lot of people will use paddle tails. I use them both. It just kind of depends on the mood, the fish are in, where I'm fishing, time of the year, everything, what I can get bites on. So you're typically going to see a lot of people using the paddle tails, and in my case, these aren't as common, but I like to actually swim them with the craw trailers. I'm telling you, they work, trust me on that. So in terms of the type of gear I like, this is my preference. I like something in the 7-speed. This is a 7.1 reel. Anything around that I think is good. I personally don't like swim jigs on the 8s. I think they're a little too fast, and for me, I just feel like I have to slow down a little bit too much. It's not my preference. So I like something in the 7s. I'd say like a medium heavy fast-ish type rod is kind of what you want. My personal, the most favorite I found, I like 30-pound braid, and I tie that to a 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. That's kind of what I like. Some people use straight fluorocarbon or straight braid. It just depends on your water clarity, what you're going to be fishing with, cover, things like that. So now in terms of just, there's a million different ways you can fish these, and that's what I like about them. When you're looking at a swim jig, they're going to have a little bit more slender head. So if you look at, say, a football jig or a punching jig, those are rounded. Reason being, a lot of those football jigs, people work them more around like rocky covers. These slender swim jig heads are much more likely to get snagged if you're dealing with some rock. So kind of keep that in mind. These are also slender. They cut through the water better than something like a football jig because they're made for swimming, as opposed to a football jig like where you're dragging it or hopping it off of the bottom. Okay, so there are a few different ways to retrieve a swim jig. The most basic thing you're going to want to do is you throw the thing out there kind of to wherever you want to, get it to, look for the cover and so forth, and you basically just retrieve it. So like I said, that might feel a little odd, but keep in mind that trailer is giving you action under the water, even if you don't feel a lot. So trust in the trailer. So the basic just retrieve here. Now I won't just do a straight retrieve with no action. What I'll generally do, I'll throw it out, get my retrieve kind of speed or cadence going. I'll run it for a little while, and then I'll give it a little pop or a little double pop, something like that. That can trigger strikes quite a bit. I generally won't just do just a solid straight retrieve, although that can work. I find that throwing a little pop in here and there, or maybe a little pause, let it sink for just a quick second and repeat, something like that, that variation in many cases can trigger bites. So kind of keep that in mind. So it is a straight retrieve, but I like to put a little something in there every now and then. Okay, now second common, super common retrieve you're going to look on the internet, it's going to be called the Alabama shake. What that is, you're basically steady retrieving at a constant speed, but you're introducing little twitches to the rod tip the entire time. So you're kind of twitching it up and down while you're retrieving it. So that's called the Alabama shake. Now that one, I don't know what about it is, but when you get hit by a fish on that Alabama shake, they just hit that thing like an absolute freight train. I don't know what it is, but it's a super fun one. But again, that's basically, you cast it out there, you're doing a steady retrieve speed, and you're kind of twitching it, kind of working that rod tip the entire way back. So try that one out. When the fish are in the mood to hit it, they just clobber it. Okay, now one other thing here. One reason I like swim jigs so much is that if you're trying to figure out the bite, they're awesome. So not only can you swim them, you can work them like you would a football jig. If you want to throw this thing out there and kind of drag it a little bit, or if you want to hop it up and down, lift and drop it, combination of that, you can work these things in a million different ways. You can also change the trailer. So if you're using the paddle tail on it, You want to throw yourself a craw on or something like that, you can switch it up, and you can figure out bites in many different ways with these things. So, but those are just some of the basic ones. Just this kind of standard retrieve, Alabama shake retrieve, and then like I said, you can kind of interchange this, you know, where you would any other jig. These cut through the moss a little bit better with that slender head, but keep them away from rocks if you can. They'll get hung up on rocks pretty easily. So now in terms of actually getting bites on these, this is important, guys. So keep in mind, when you're working a swim jig, this is in forward motion constantly. It's not like a football jig where you're hopping it up and down or doing any of that stuff. So you might watch a video where guys say, as soon as you feel anything, crack them on a jig. I wouldn't do that on a swim jig. I'm not a fan of doing that on any jig myself, but especially on a swim jig though. Now, the reason I say that, keep in mind, this thing is moving. So the fish might hit the head of the lure or they might hit the trailer. What you'll often feel on these, sometimes they'll just smoke it and they're on there and that's that. But I've noticed more often than not on a swim jig bite, as you're retrieving it, reeling it in, you're gonna feel a little tap, little tick. What I'd recommend, until you know that fish is on there, don't get rushy with it. If you feel a little tick, tick, just wait for a quick second until you know it's on. Keep that reel going constant, or if anything, you can speed it up just a hair, but don't get too crazy on the hook set. What they'll often do, you'll feel that little tap or that little second tap, and then boom, they're on. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're missing fish, you might be getting a little too antsy on the hook set. And I've found that like 90% of my swim jig bites, you'll feel a little tap tap or something, and then before they actually are on there. So just kind of keep that in mind. And in terms of the hook set, once they're on, go ahead and feel free to crack them, because these hooks, a lot of them are kind of thicker gauge hooks, and you don't need to go crazy with it. Honestly, you really don't have to hook set it that hard, but I normally give them a pretty good upward, possibly slightly angled hook set, and that seems to work really good. But I hope that helped you guys. But yeah, big thing, like I said, confidence wise in these, just remember the trailer does the action, so it might feel weird at first. Stick with it. Once you learn to use these, you'll see just how versatile they are. I mean, you can fish them around all sorts of cover. You can fish them around grass, rocks, wood, you name it. Swim jigs are awesome, guys. So give them a shot, mix up the trailers, mix up the cadence. But like I said, if you want to go out there and try to just catch some, try out the steady retrieve with a pop or two thrown in here and there. That can get you some bites. All right, until next time. Thanks, guys.